the truth is that Africa, and I've been to other nations within Africa as well, consists of beautiful people on all different socioeconomic levels. And so you don't see just everyone who may be of a poorer economic state. You see all kinds of people with all kinds of trades. And I believe that, and I've always said this, every person of color, particularly of African American persuasion, should visit at least once.
Yes, absolutely.
And to see for yourself, to experience for yourself. And I'm not talking about just going to a resort.
Exactly. Right. That's right.
Because I'm on the resort.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. That's right. That's right.
I love that. But
That's right.
I think there is something special about relating to the people who are here and finding out your perspective of your own country.
Absolutely.
So that can clarify what outsiders may see or view.
Can you guys just introduce yourself to us, who you guys are?
I'm Natalie Francisco from Virginia in the States.
Wow.
And I'm Valerie Brown, and I was invited to come to Ghana by Natalie, and I'm also from Virginia.
Wow.
This is my first time here.
Yes. Since you've been invited to come to Africa, what really gingers you to move to Africa after the invite?
What would encourage us to move here?
Yeah.
Ooh. I'm going to give that to
you. You know, it's funny, Natalie and I were kind of talking about, dual citizenship. When she did the invitation, I'd heard your president speaking about one of his initiatives are to encourage African Americans to come back, and he would offer dual citizenship. So that was one of the things I was interested in, just kind of looking around the country and seeing what the opportunities are, quality of life, and those kind of things, to see if that was something that perhaps could materialize.
Wow. So, ma'am?
Well, to be quite honest, I was looking at and already in the process of considering dual citizenship in Jamaica. So I had not thought of Ghana until such time that my friend Valerie said that was a possibility. I'm still probably going to go with Jamaica.
Okay. We actually have 55 countries in Africa here.
Okay.
In this continent, we actually have 55 countries. So why did you guys choose to come to Ghana for the first time?
Well, this is my second time.
Okay.
So the first time that I came was with my husband, which was in 1994. It's been quite some time ago.
Yeah.
So my friend, Michelle McKinney-Hammond, invited me some time ago to come after she moved here. And so I wanted to follow up on that invitation and come. And then when I heard my friend Valerie say that's been a dream of hers.
That's correct.
I said, this is the prime opportunity to go. So,
wow. So,
yes.
Ma'am?
Yeah, well, I've been to a couple other places in Africa. I've been to Monrovia, I've been to Johannesburg, Marrakesh. So, I like to travel. Natalie likes to travel.
Indeed.
So anytime somebody say let's, I say go.
Hey.
And when she mentioned that she was going to Ghana, I said that would be great. Another place I had heard about, other people who had also come and said they really enjoyed the experience. So wanted to come and check it out for myself.
Yes.
People have been showing these negative stuff about Africa. Both negative and positive about Africa. And as you also come into Ghana, you read about Ghana from the internet and so forth. You might have seen negative things, you might have seen positive things about Ghana. Maybe what actually do you guys see about Ghana before making a move to Ghana?
I want to say, as we were talking a little bit earlier, I think with age and maybe exposure, you kind of knew what to expect. I think until you actually see it, though, you can only visualize. I'll say it that way. But I think one of the things in almost a week now that we've been here, I've gotten different perspectives on it. I think some of the things that we Americans may think is negative, the culture here thinks it's okay, So one of the things I'm wrestling with, even with some of the conversations that we're having, is that it's cultural. If you've never been exposed to something different, what I may think is negative is positive to you or is okay to you. So I think one of the things that you're going to always be fighting with the image of Africa is the outside world's perspective of what quality of life should be and what it should look like. And I don't think it's fair for us to try and impose a lifestyle that we think is what you should have on what you think is okay. So, because I guess I would turn that question almost back to you. What is the image that you want us to have of Africa? You know, because people talk about safaris all the time. So I know you say you always think about it as animals, but that's one of the positives that we see. Everybody's talking about, I want to go take a safari. So I think it boils down to the individual person's perspective.
Okay. And what your quality of life is, and because that's different for everyone.
Absolutely.
I think, I'm just speaking from probably the broader perspective of those that are in the States, particularly if they've never been to Africa. And so the perspective would be that all of Africa, no matter what country, what nation within the continent we're talking about, is about poverty-stricken children that you see from commercials that have been portrayed, or organizations that are trying to get Americans and people around the world to assist them in feeding that population. I can tell you this, the first time that my husband came to Ghana before I joined him, as I said, in 1994, he didn't have a clue as to what to expect. And on the plane, he shared with me the movies that carrier was playing were movies like Tarzan.
Exactly.
And so you have this whole stereotype, I think, that people wrongly buy into because they haven't been exposed to, and I'm going to say this, the truth.
That's correct.
And the truth is that Africa, and I've been to other nations within Africa as well, consists of beautiful people on all different socioeconomic levels. And so you don't see just everyone who may be of a poorer economic state. You see all kinds of people with all kinds of trades. And I believe that, and I've always said this, every person of color, particularly of African American persuasion, should visit at least once.
Yes, absolutely.
And to see for yourself, to experience for yourself. And I'm not talking about just going to a resort.
Exactly. Right. That's right.
Because I'm on the resort.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. That's right. That's right.
I love that. But
That's right.
I think there is something special about relating to the people who are here and finding out your perspective of your own country.
Absolutely.
So that can clarify what outsiders may see or view.
Right.
That's
so
great.
Talking about this culture balance that my mom is talking about, dealing with an African, or maybe bringing these two cultures together. American has their own culture, African also has their own culture.
Sure.
Do you find it very difficult dealing with Africans when it comes to culture balancing?
I think, again, it goes back to communication, finding out and being willing to not only talk and get our perspective across, but being understanding of different cultures and the way that you do things, and understanding, again, from each other's perspective, how we can, come together. One of the ties, I think, that happened as far as we are concerned is because we've gone through a whole identity shift as a people. We've gone from being called Negro to Black to colored to African American. And so I think when we started calling ourselves and accepting that that is who we are, not just what we should be called, it ties us back to our communities of origin. I was sharing with Valerie as well that one of the things I was able to do was to find out through Ancestry, not just Ancestry, but AfricanAncestry.com, how my family line, particularly through my mother, ties back to Africa. And so I found out that I have roots in Senegal and in Sierra Leone and in Guinea-Bissau. And so, I mean, this goes back to through that particular ancestry with African ancestry, doing the genetics, is made by Black people for Black people up to 2,000 years ago, to the very villages where they can tie, our DNA. That speaks volumes to me. So of course, I want to visit those countries. I've never visited those particular ones. Ghana has been special. Just the things we've been able to learn and to talk about because of the tours that we have been on have moved us incredibly. And so it won't be, it's your first time, won't be your last.
Right. That's right.
My second time, but again, won't be my last either. But we don't want that just to be the country. There's so many countries in Africa to visit, but there is an incredible tie that binds us, and you won't know until you're able to experience it for yourself.
Yeah. Well, you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everything Natalie said. I think the thing that's so profound and kind of stands out for me and has been a part of a lot of our conversations is how rich and powerful we are as a Black people.
Yeah.
And we always talk about how our oppressors did a great job of dividing and separating us. And that continues today. Yeah. And so I think with the travel of people coming to Africa, we find that connection, whether it's through your ancestors or just coming and experiencing the people and recognizing that we have so many things in common that if we could learn to work together, even across continents, how much more we could accomplish.
So true.
So how do we guys, because I am part of it, you are also part of it. I am Black, you are Black. Because I realize that some African Americans have trust issues dealing with the Africans that are here in Ghana that are really in Ghana. They have trust issues dealing with them. So you being an African American, me being an African, a typical African, how do you want to merge this kind of trust issues for us to trust each other?
I'll start off quick and then I'll let Natalie jump in because, you know, the first thing I'm going to say, we're still dealing with trust with African Americans. Absolutely. So that's the first thing. I was like, that's
a hard one to answer.
Yeah, because as I shared, we have been, and what was the motto we just saw? Something about getting yourself out of your slave mentality, mental slavery mentality. We still struggle with that. So while you, and I guess we both still share that history, whether you were not taken, it was still an ancestor of yours that was taken. And we are the product of our ancestors who were taken, but in all situations, we all had that separate and divide and not trust each other. And so again, whether it's depicted through movies or whether it's depicted through actual history of how they particularly and specifically chose some of us to be the telltale people, which led to the mistrust. And it's continued today. And we still have people that we consider the telltale people for things that are going on. So I think I'm back to my saying where I said, if we know the answer to that, we'd all be gazillionaires if we could figure out how to overcome that trust or mistrust, I should say.
That is true. I just think we have to be more intentional about it. Intentional about, for parents who have children, legacy, which is something that we are very intentional about ourselves, for our families, for our churches, for our businesses. We know that we don't exist alone in a vacuum.
Right.
And so it's that kind of mentality I think that all of us can aspire to work together, to want to leave something not just for ourselves and for our biological children, but for those that are assigned to us. And, the scripture says it best, we are our brother's keeper.
Yeah.
And I think, Natalie, you making me think of a really valid point that I think we've talked about too. And you hit on it. When we stop thinking about us is when the mistrust will end.
That is true.
I think we mistrust because people have wrong motives or intent because they're trying to figure out what they can get for themselves, which is why they use you and take advantage of situations. But when we all realize what you just said, that it's more than about us and it's about the people or our families or our legacy, then the trust will be there because we will all know that it's not about us.
Exactly.
So apart from trusting each other, how well do you African Americans and also Africans want to merge together to fix the problem that we the Africans are having, because I see myself that Africa doesn't need any continent to survive. All the other continents, they need Africa to survive. So you and I, how do we merge our culture? How do we merge our efforts? How do we merge our development to improve Africa?
See, that's a question I think that you would have to answer, because of the fact that our cultures, although they are rich, yours and ours as African Americans, they're different. And I think there's a healthy respect that comes into play when we're able to celebrate not just our commonalities as a people, as Black people, but also our differences, and not to try to change one another's culture, but to embrace those things that bind us together and that make us uniquely who we are. So as far as fixing Africa, I don't think I, as a person coming from a totally different country, would have the answers to that.
Right.
Because I haven't been here long enough to even know what those problems are.
Right.
Only you can know from your perspective and the people who live here. And the same holds true for trust me, there are a lot of problems in America. I know people think that America is the land of promise, and but there are a lot of issues that our people, that Black people in
still
particular,
struggle with,
deal with daily.
And we're trying to answer that question even for ourselves in America.
Yes.
It's the people in power, it's the politics, it's the top 1% who owns all the businesses, control all the employment. It's so many different facets from which you can come, and that is where the complexity comes. And how do you fix it? Where do you start? Because it's that proverbial wheel. You might be able to do a little bit here, but it doesn't really change anything. So,
and then there's so many problems. It's
correct.
Fast. So where do you start?
That's right.
And how do you get momentum from there? So. And then who are the people who are willing
Who are the they?
Yes, who are the they?
Yeah.
Well, I figured out the they is really we. It is.
Correct. Correct.
So, if all of us are willing to do what we can do in our corners of the world, starting from within our home structure and branching out from that, I believe the world will be in a better place.
Very true.
I think far less, not enough people realize the power and the potential that lies within us and within our own hands to create change and to make a difference. Every person has that potential to do that, to make things better for you. And I think there are a lot of people who would want to depend on someone else to, whether it is provide resources or to do what needs to be done when it may be within our power to do what we can do.
Okay, so for the fact that you guys have been in Ghana for a while now, maybe for days or maybe for a week, you've had some experience in Ghana. And do you think living in Ghana is really a difficult thing, living over here in Ghana?
Again, we're visiting,
right?
not living.
Actually living,
the
right.
person to ask that question to would be my friend who invited us here, because she's been here for almost 13 years, living here. And then we met another friend last night who is overjoyed by, she's from Boston, in the States, Boston, Massachusetts.
Right.
But she's been a Ghanaian citizen as well for 30 years now. And she was touting the praises of living here.
Absolutely.
Loves it. Is even living off the land, and is just very creative. So it's people like that who can answer that question, I believe, far better than we can, because we're passing through for now.
Absolutely. And we have generous hosts that are making it easy. Again, I don't know if we're looking at it from a realistic day-to-day living here.
Okay.
Sorry to ask this question. Maybe whoever is watching this interview, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but it's just a question that I want to ask. We Africans, the youths in Africa, are really moving to America just to find a living for their family and so forth. Diasporas are also moving to Ghana to unite the Africans together to develop Africa. Do you really think, is it necessary, or is it not stupidity, sorry to say, but is it not stupidity for an African to leave Africa to go to America to find a living?
I would call it stupidity because every person's situation is different. I will say this from my perspective in being an American, I see immigrants who come in from Africa as well as from other countries, and you don't know what the opportunities have been in that country. But I surmise that the reason why they came to America was because we're known as the land of opportunity.
Correct.
And many times, and I just have to say this is true, and maybe I should have that disclaimer you just said. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody,
Right.
But sometimes immigrants can come over and handle and are willing to do the jobs that people in the States are not willing to do.
Correct.
And they will move from there and continue to progress and build and create their own businesses, and they'll come together because there's a level, I think, of communal living that we've gotten away from.
That's correct.
We were talking about
That's
that,
correct.
weren't we,
Yes,
as
we were.
African Americans.
Yep.
And so it's nothing to see immigrants who come from other countries, Africa, nations included, who will send money back home, but they'll also live together.
Right.
Many of them within the same home until such time that they can afford to or desire to move out. And there's nothing wrong with that. Generations even living within the same home because, again, they have that mentality to do so, that it's not just about my own selfish ambitions. It's not just about improving my quality of life alone, but I'm here to help my family. I'm here to help others, whether I'm sending money back home or those that I'm allowing to live, and we're all splitting the cost still to make our quality of life and living better.
And I think another part of that is Africans have the same perspectives or thought processes that we as Americans have. In other words, you've heard things about America. And so I think for the same reason we want to come here and explore for ourselves, you have Africans that want to come there and explore for themselves. And I think what happens is it's exposure. And we talk about that all the time. Right. You don't know what you don't know until you go and you see it. And so even though you may think you're coming to America for one reason, you get there and you just find other things. And then you come back and you share it, which for some is all they need to say, okay, yeah, I want to go. And for others, they say, oh, see, that's why I don't want to go at all. And they stay here. So again, I don't think we can judge right or wrong on either side.
Okay. Another one that I want to ask, this is for the African Americans living in America or maybe any part of the world or anything. Sorry to say again, okay? You African Americans has been brainwashed. Bad things are said about Africa, that Africa is this, Africa is that, Africa is this. They paint the negative side of Africa to you guys. And now you've known the truth about Africa. If it is Africa, if Africa is really the best place, or maybe if it is a bad place, you know the truth already. So assuming you guys know that Africa is not what people say in the internet, what are you guys going to do to change those kind of narratives that people really have about Africa?
Well, I can say one of the things that my husband and I have been adamant about is creating opportunities not just for our children to experience trips abroad, but also within our congregation, within our church. We have several programs where we have through the years made sure that adults as well as children in particular can come and visit African nations, Caribbean nations, just so they can get a broader perspective and know that the world is larger than just your point of view. It's larger than what you see, and it also gives you a greater appreciation for human life and for cultures outside of your own.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's it in a nutshell. I mean, all we can do is our part in terms of communicating with those who, are in our sphere, whether it's family, friends, colleagues. There are always conversations that are surrounding different cultures. And as long as we share, the truths of what we've seen and what we've experienced, I think that's going to go a long way in changing the myths.
Wow.
I agree.
Wow. So now that you guys are in Africa, you've seen, like I said, you've seen those negative things about Africa.
Mhm.
So what are you guys doing to put Africa to its right direction?
That's again, you stumped both of us with that one.
I know.
Because again, you have to know the prevailing issues that exist
Right.
in order to tackle or address them.
Right.
And by virtue of us visiting, we get a surface level of that.
Right.
And even the surface level that we get, we talked about this,
Earlier,
all
yes,
of the
we did.
tours that we've been on and
Mhm.
people that we've asked questions of and that have given us information, we get a lot of different stories.
Yes, we do.
And so which one are we going to take back? We
Right.
don't know. And
Exactly.
so sometimes you have to come more, well, I won't
Yeah,
say
that's
sometimes,
right.
you
You
literally
have
have to
to.
come more than one time
Right.
and talk to a plethora of people to find out their perspectives. And somewhere within there is the truth.
Absolutely.
But you have to discern what that is.
Correct. And then once again, I don't think it's on us to impose, once again,
Yeah.
our values on you. One of the things I think that has been common is you are a very proud people. I mean, it came through in every tour guide,
Yes.
every monument, everything that we saw, the videos of how rooted you are in your history. So if nothing else, we keep
Love
saying
that.
we don't know our history. We don't know our history. And
that
you guys,
sounds just-
yeah, it did. But everybody here was just spitting the history out. And we were like, wow, we got to do better.
Yeah.
Because how can you do better if you don't know from which you've come and the struggles you've gone through? So if nothing else, that's there. But once again, we're putting our American vision on what we see here. And that may not be what you want because people value different things.
Okay. So do you guys intend to stay in Africa permanently?
Not permanently for me, because I've got
Right.
children and grandchildren at home.
Absolutely.
And they would be so upset, but I don't think I could take that if they were with me.
Right.
I will continue to come back, though.
Absolutely.
That's a promise.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, you heard us say we're thinking legacy too. I mean, for all of our lives, we've been in America. And even though Africa is having its struggle, America is still having its struggle. And I think part of our legacy and purpose, of God is to continue to advance African Americans, even in the American culture, because the kingdom is not about just Africa. The kingdom for us is worldwide. So we believe God has strategically placed each of us where he needs us to advance the kingdom.
Yes,
and
indeed.
if that's the purpose in our forefront in our mind, it may not be our call or our purpose to come back and be here in Ghana or any part of Africa. I think that's an individual choice. I think that's a conversation between that person and God to say, am I needed here in Ghana, or, am I not finished the legacy that I'm trying to create back in America? And I think she's absolutely correct. We are pouring into people. We both have churches.
Right.
We're pouring in the gospel of God into them. We're pouring it into our families. And we believe, at least for right now, that our call is still to empower the people, African Americans in America.
For me, I am here to promote Africa, and I can't do that all alone.
That's right.
It will involve you and I and everybody who wants to help me to promote Africa. And I'm also on an agenda to unite Africa, to be a one African continent, or maybe a country. Because I don't see Africa to be a continent, I see Africa to be a country, uniting our country together. But Africa is full of borders. When you go to Europe, you can move from Italy to Germany without paying anything.
Right.
When you go to anywhere in Europe, moving to one country to another country, you don't have to pay anything. But why is it that Africa, our own, is full of borders? Our money are devalued and so forth. You cannot use Ghana cedis in in America. What do you think we should do to correct all this attitude that people think Africa are devalued and so forth? Like, what are we going to do about it?
Again, I think it's coming together ourselves, not expecting another group of people who don't look like us to understand us.
Right.
Because we have a difficult enough time trying to understand ourselves. But it's in coming together as a people. What you're talking about is different nations on the continent of Africa coming together and seeing how you can be more cohesive as a people. We need to do that in all of our nations, actually. So it is about intentionality. It is about realizing how strong you are together more than being separated.
And then, we always say follow the money. When he asked that question, I immediately thought both of us live in the Hampton Roads area.
Right.
There are 7 cities in our Hampton Roads area that for years, they've talked about coming together. Why do we need 7 cities? I mean, 7 unique cities
Right.
when we all are so interdependent. One city has great money. One city has great water. Another city has beachfront. Another city is the best place to live residentially. Why can't we be one large city? Why can't we come together? Well, we know the answer. Once again, and you already shared, it's back to the politics. It's back to, I've got my kingdom over here, you've got your kingdom over here, and who's going to give up the kingdom? Who's going to be the lead?
Yeah.
And so we're back to whether that's the large continent of Africa or whether that's our small segment of Virginia. The issue is the same. Why can't we work together? And I think it goes back to at least one part of it is what we said. It's leadership, who you elect. Are they doing it for the good of the whole or for their small sphere?
Okay, my final question.
Are you sure?
Yes, my final question. I'm challenging you guys to move to Africa in order for us to solve African problems, to build Africa together. I'm challenging you guys.
Well, you told us we couldn't ask you a question, but I would like to hear, what do you think we two could, look, I'm really not being facetious and I'm not trying to ask you the question, but for you to make a statement like that, it has value to me, but I'm sitting here saying, well, what is the little me gonna do? You've got to be able to paint the story. And when I say us, I'm saying to the world now. You're talking to the world.
Yes.
If you're saying to the world, move back to Africa, you got to say more than that. You've got to tell me, what can I do? Because I have to be able to buy into, you're right. If I come, I can do that. Because otherwise, all you're inviting me to is to come and buy a house and just live here without making an impact.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to ask you that question. For the tape, I guess I'm challenging you back to say in your next podcast, you need to hone in on why come to Africa. What is it I can do? Because if I can do it, I believe the world would come back.
We need you guys to form a strong African country. Okay?
But how can we do that?
So you moving back to Africa, you might have a knowledge, or maybe you've learned something from the States.
Okay.
You can even implement it in Africa. Then we can develop on that. Because Africa, it's like we need to come back together from each and everyone's idea to build a country together, or maybe to build a continent together. So it has to come from you, it has to come from it has to come from Miss.
Yeah.
So we all have to bring our ideas together to sit on one table to discuss what we have to do to fix our own problems. Because Africa doesn't need any continent. So Africa need you. And you need Africa. I need Africa, Africa need me. So I'm challenging you, come back to Ghana, come back to Africa, and let's solve Africa, our problems. We have to make Africa one Africa. We need to make Africa a strong nation so that nobody, no continent can even reign us or maybe can even control us, because I see Africa to be a continent that everybody can control. That is how I see Africa. And we need to start doing something. We need to act fast. That is what I'm challenging you guys to come to Africa, to move to Africa permanently, and then we solve our own problems.
Well, let me say this, because even with all of the issues that your country may have, at least you're moving in a positive direction because you are independent of colonial leadership, British leadership. That speaks volumes. 1957, right? Was the year. And so you can't say that there are people who are controlling you who don't look like you. So that is a positive. I would also just encourage you to find those people, and I'm sure you know of many of them, who believe just like you.
Absolutely.
Don't discount that there are people within your own country, within your own, wherever you live, because we've been across what we thought was the length and the breadth of Ghana, and we understand we still haven't seen
all of it.
We've just seen a tip. Right. So there are many people, I am sure, who believe like you do and who are willing to become a part of the change. So that
Absolutely.
even whether we move back or not is not even an issue. It is about who and what you can do right now to come together cohesively to begin that process. And it starts with just, again, identifying those people, finding out what your strengths are. What is it that you can bring to the table, so to speak? Just like we were talking about other nations coming together. What is it, like we were talking about our Hampton Roads area, the 7 cities? What can my city is Hampton. That's where I was born.
Right.
That's where our church is located. What are the positives? What are the things that we can lend to other cities? What are the things that we can receive from Chesapeake? That's right. I'm kind of
you both close.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think just as we're talking about and using that example about our cities and about our nations, that's what we as a people have to do.
Yeah, and I think you're selling yourself short in terms of your people too. And when a leader rises, it's not the foreigner that the people are going to rally around. I mean, I know, even though you say we come back, and I know you're articulating because y'all are going to accept us as, Africans, but we know there's a divide between us. And so even coming back, the first step is going to be having y'all to accept us and recognize us as Africans. So I'm agreeing with Natalie. I think you have right here in Africa a homegrown African that will not have to fight that first battle because they homegrown. They love their country, and they will step up, and people will rally around them. And so I would encourage you, like Natalie. I think to the extent that we can help send resources and all that, because that's going to be all a part of the challenge and the battle. But you got a leader right here that's ready to rise up. You just got to get your people here to support them.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. But I just want to tell you that in Africa, there is no racism in Africa.
There's no
racism.
No racism.
Yes, no racism in Africa. No racism. Yes, I can guarantee you that.
Wow.
No racism.
Wow.
So that would be hard to believe.
No, I'm telling you, because if you are an African American, I am an African, we are all one. The skin is one.
That's our common
so there's
cause.
no racism between who?
An African and African Americans.
Okay.
So if you guys are coming, you shouldn't be afraid. We are all one people, and we need you guys too, and you need us.
Right.
So fine, what are you guys going to tell your people out there that are watching you? Your friends and family, maybe they are also watching you.
As a people, we are stronger together than we are separated or isolated. I think that we all have individual gifts and talents and abilities that can be used for the greater good. And just as I shared with you, not to discount those, wherever you may be.
Yeah, and Ghana's a great place. You got to come visit.
It is, yeah.
So as you are watching, please move to Ghana. Don't come to Ghana. Move to Ghana. Move to Africa. You don't have to come to Africa. Just move.
Just move.
Pack your things, sell your cars, your houses, and so forth, and move to Africa. Africa is really a peaceful place. You will love it. The fresh air and everything. Look, you just look. You're enjoying it. So as you're watching, please subscribe to our channel, and then you hit the notification bar. You can also support us on our GoFundMe page. Mom, you have any Facebook or social media handle that you can put out there?
Oh, well, you can follow me on the gram, as they say, Natalie Francisco on Instagram. Same name on Facebook. We have 2 wonderful churches. Ours is Calvary Community Church in Hampton. We call it C3 Hampton. The website is c3hampton.org. You can also go to C3 Hampton on either Facebook or Instagram.
Yep. Okay, sounds good. My handle is Elder VKB. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. The Mount Leads is our name for our church. It's called Mount Lebanon. And they're on everything, Facebook and all that as well.
Wow. So please, as you are watching us, please check on their page. Any other things that you want to ask them, you can just ask them, because they have things to teach you guys. So as you are also watching my channel, please visit their channel, their Facebook page, support them in everything that they do, and move to Africa.
Bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you.